Hey everyone, it's Leanne Newton here. I'm joined by CJ and Anita.
Hey guys.
Hi guys.
Well, we've come to discuss the week, well, not even a week, is it? Like the last couple of days of the Wayfair and Lively case.
Yeah.
So, where are we going to start?
I want to start on my Roman Empire. Because
Um,
literally I said it on my channel too, that part of the thing that why I create content and why I got so involved in like X and making my threads and stuff was mostly just to like empty it out of my brain because I would get these Roman empires. I'd be sitting with family and just like thinking about it. Like someone would be talking to me and I could hear words coming out of their mouth, but in my head I'd just be like thinking about it. So part of it was just like brain dumping it onto like all my followers. And it was like, all right, y'all deal with it now. And most of the time, like I would get people who would be in the comments or whatever, where they'd be like explaining it further or help me understand it better. And so it would kind of like scratch that itch that I had on it. So my biggest Roman Empire today was at the hearing where Judge Lyman asked Lively's lawyers. So basically, Lively's lawyers were arguing that they wanted um, discovery from the tag employees starting from July all the way to present time because they are saying that the smear campaign is still ongoing. And so at the hearing, the opposing counsel for the tag employees basically said, you know, I don't think that it should be that broad because, for one of the employees left in December. And then also the other employee only had that contract with Baldoni. It ended in either late August or early September. So I don't feel like there should be a need to go that broad. And it should only be up to December 21st, if anything, because that's when Blake Lively filed her complaint. And so at that point, the judge asks Lively's attorneys, like, okay, what's your rebuttal to that? And she says, that she talks about the ongoing smear campaign. And then he stops her and asks, and he goes, what proof do you have that there's an ongoing smear campaign, right? And
yeah,
so I don't know if you have that one, the image that you can pull up, but
which
she
one?
ends up, it's the one that says, hold on.
Is that the footnote?
Okay, yeah, but I should probably start with the second one, the one that says from Foximus that replied to me, that has the exact wording that she says. Yeah, that one. There you go.
Yeah.
So this person replied to me on X and said they had actually written down the exact wording from Lively's lawyer, which was Kirsten Bend, I think her last name was. It wasn't Ben. I forget what her last name is, but it was not Ezra. She says when he asked what's the proof, she says the relevant time period in this case has possibly been resolved by this court's order last Wednesday, acknowledging that the smear campaign is alleged to be ongoing. So she's basically saying that the judge in his ruling, and I'm not sure which one because I was sent two different ones on which ones she might have been referring to. Do you want to pull up the footnote for the motion to dismiss real quick? So
Yeah.
so that one. So someone sent this one saying that this is what she was referring to, where Judge Lyman basically he goes on to say that he's taking everything she's saying. So he says, as the court noted in the ruling on Miss Lively's motion to dismiss, so this is a footnote from the Lively parties that are quoting him. And in here they say the CRD complaint and article contained numerous messages and documents strongly suggesting the Wayfair parties did spread negative stories about Lively. Specifically, Abel stated to Nathan and Baldoni, they want to feel like she can be buried. Nathan responded, we can't send over the work. We will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. Nathan provided a scenario planning document. And then so they cite where in the docket this is being quoted. So it was like he was quoting them and then they're quoting him type of thing. And then there was another one that I was sent, if you want to pull that one up, from the most recent. She did say Wednesday, and I don't believe that the motion to dismiss was on Wednesday.
Which one am I pulling up now? Is it
The other one with the footnote?
that one?
Yeah, that one. So this was another commenter who was like, because I was under the impression, I was like, wait, did Judge Lyman just acknowledge, like, why is she saying that he acknowledged that there was an ongoing smear campaign? When did he acknowledge that? He says in the order on Wednesday. And so this is from
Yeah, like, this is Brent. Brent is actually, I believe, a lawyer.
Yeah, I think he is. And so he says he didn't find that the smear campaign is ongoing. He just held that Lively alleged it. So then post 2024 communications will be relevant for discovery purposes. And so this was the footnote that he was thinking that she was referencing, which is Lively expresses, where does it go? Hold on, let me find the part. These objections do not provide. Oh, right here. We're part of the campaign against Lively after December 21st through 2024. And it cites certain specific statements made by defendants' lawyers. It also states that defendants themselves continue to be involved after December 21st, 2024, framing the campaign as a continuation of events prior to the CRD complaint.
Yeah.
So then somebody explained, I think in the last one that I sent you, this is Ludwig, who we love. He does the pop culture music, all the diss tracks. And so then he says the issue is, as many lawyers agree, that Lyman did not consider JB's allegations in the most favorable light to him. Seems like he was representing Lively and applied summary judgment for the motion to dismiss. At one point, Lyman even mentioned that Ryan wasn't on site. And so my Roman Empire was like, from what I read, and this is why I wanted like a lawyer to chime in. And I know Brent is an attorney, but as far as like, why did he read her stuff in a favorable light as fact? Basically, she's alleging that a smear campaign was ongoing. So he's alleging it as he's reading it in the most favorable light because to her, but then he didn't do the same thing for Justin Baldoni's his stuff, because on his motion to dismiss, it's almost like he's like not taking, because normally if you're the plaintiff in the case, the plaintiff gets the most favorable light.
Yeah, so
the defendant has to prove like they have the burden.
Yeah, so that's right. It is supposed to be. He is supposed to have read Wayfarer's complaint in the most favorable light when considering these motions to dismiss. I think that is what blindsided every single lawyer commenting on this case. Well, nearly all of them. I think it was pretty. It was quite a dramatic outpouring. There was myself. There was Omar. Not actually Golden. I think Legal Bites. We've all sort of said, well, we did, and obviously Judge Rachel, we all said we expected the motion to the 12B6s. We expected the complaint to be dismissed. What we did not foresee was the with prejudice bit. And he did kind of go into detail about fact issues. Which I found a bit wild. It did read more as a summary judgment decision. I do agree.
Yeah, and so I know Anita also had previously said that was kind of like one thing that she was like, that's weird, because from what I gathered or what I like took from it was like, well, now here's another ruling that is being affected by the fact that it's being taken as kind of like Bible that the smear campaign was continuous, because in his ruling at the end, he says, because of the alleged, smear campaign, whatever, then he felt like it was appropriate to at least investigate further and get discovery through March 2025 and just test it. And I'm like, it just didn't make sense to me how that was used when he's like, what proof do you have of a smear campaign? And that was her only proof that the judge had acknowledged it.
And the fact that another thing is that, and the fact that also,
but there's a weird sound coming. We can't hear you, Anita.
Oh,
Yeah,
you can't. Oh, sorry, wait one sec. Can you hear me now?
there's
Yeah,
a
we
really
can.
weird sound coming from you.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, but she's muted now.
Oh,
Anita?
maybe she logged out and is logging back in.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. She hasn't left the. She hasn't left. Oh, yeah, no, she'll be right back. I've just seen the message.
It sounded like the judge was arguing the case for Lively. Okay, so initially in the hearing, it seemed like he was like questioning her lawyer a bunch, like, well, like, what about this? What about that? And it seemed like he was kind of annoyed at her.
Yeah,
And
I definitely got that. I said because I was laughing at on Telegram. I was laughing in the group chat. Sort of like, oh, he just told her off. He's really frustrated. But I noticed that Lively's lawyer did actually say, Judge, you said in your ruling that the smear campaign was ongoing. The judge did shut her down on that, and he asked her what proof she had that a smear campaign was ongoing from past December. And she didn't actually have anything. All she had was that one of the tag employees, Coslow, had been retained, something to do with Skyline, which is they have something to do with the Baldoni website, where the exhibit A is and everything. But there was no actual, she was kind of forced to say that there was no evidence of that. Lively herself had no evidence of ongoing smear campaign, which was weird. But yeah, I agree with Brent. The judge didn't actually say that the smear campaign is ongoing. That is kind of been twisted that way.
but he basically asked her. That's the thing that doesn't make sense to me, because when he said, what proof do you have that the smear campaign is ongoing, she listed his ruling as proof of the alleged campaign. So that's the thing that was like my Roman Empire, and why I was like trying to get, I tagged a couple lawyers in it, because I was like, what did she mean by that? Like, that he's basically like verifying it, or like, because I don't know if you can pull it back up per exact wording.
This one, or
No, it's the other one, the one from Brent.
this
Or no,
one.
from what's his name? It started with an F. It was the other one.
Oh, Proximus.
Yeah, it said the relevant time period in this case has possibly, so she says possibly been resolved by this court's order last Wednesday, acknowledging that the smear campaign is alleged to be ongoing. So was that just her saying that he acknowledged that the smear campaign was alleged to be ongoing? But in that footnote, he does, for the motion to dismiss, he does acknowledge that based on what they wrote, that there is sufficient evidence to acknowledge that it could be ongoing.
Which
The
this
big
one?
long one. No, not
Yeah.
well, that one.
There's so many footnotes.
I'm not that good at like reading legal paperwork, so I don't know. That's why I was like, maybe a lawyer can. I sent it to ask 2 lawyers, and I tagged a bunch of lawyers too, and I tagged Omar too on. Yeah, I tagged Omar. I tagged Legal Bites.
I mean, she's listed all these lawyers, but she does get my opinion as well.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, can you hear me
Go
now?
on, Anita.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
And like, just to add to this, like, okay, let's say he's advocating here, right, for Lively. It's obvious. For me, it is obvious. Like, he's kind of deciding. He also, even for Ryan's, like, his motion to dismiss, he says, like, oh, he probably, as a husband, he probably believed his wife. Like, he's bringing an argument for Ryan as to why he should be dismissed.
Yes, I had a problem with that, a big one, because, well, there's a lot of questions from that, because it's not like Friedman said, well, if you believed your wife was being sexually harassed, why are you making fun of it? Why is it funny? Why are you making a joke? And I think that's what that there was a real question that could have come from that, and I think that was a fact issue that should never have been. It shouldn't have been considered in that motion to dismiss.
I I mean, okay, it's very hard not to be
How
a
do you read
conspiracy
this footnote?
theorist in this show. I mean, show
yeah.
and shit show. Sorry. Oh, am I allowed to swear here?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, like it's a shit show. Literally, it is.
It
It's
is.
very hard not to speculate because things are just so convoluted and how things are going, and you're kind of left to decide because it makes no sense. So if it made any sense, the lawyer says like, oh, this is based on the law, right? But then if you read and one of the things I've also noticed with the lawyers who give it, like they forget some of the facts that have happened as we go through because they just read a filing, right? And then they move on with their daily life. They have like cases, like real cases that they deal with. And we also have, but there's certain details I feel like a lot of lawyers are overlooking, that they're like, oh, this is what they mean. Yes, they didn't plead right. But actually, if you read, yes, maybe Friedman's, not maybe, for sure it was messy, but they had so many things. It needed organizing, but they had a lot of proof of, or like, I'd say reasonable, like, way to show that, oh, there could be malice, and they think there was malice. They even said that, oh, we think she didn't want to file. And based on the US law, from what I understand, in a pleading you just have to show enough evidence to move forward. They did plenty. He completely
I completely agree with that. I think there was enough there. I get, because I'm Omar's right. I said this when I covered, I think it was either the New York Times or Leslie Sloan's motion to dismiss. I think it was the first one that came. I feel like it was the New York Times. I did actually make a point of saying, right, this is what a good filing looks like, because Wayfarer's complaint, the way it was written, it was designed to get in an awful lot of information, but that is not a normal complaint. A normal complaint is, around 30 to 40 pages long. It is not hundreds of pages filled with, images of texts and emails and, scattered everywhere. I mean, when you look, and that's not just Wayfarer's, that was also Lively's complaint, was equally, filled with evidence, and they were both hitting, they were prioritizing the PR. And the reason I know that is because there was very little case law actually to substantiate. You think about each of those complaints had over 10 causes of action, but there was very, very little case law to support the legal standard and the position. So I think part of me thinks that had Wayfarer filed motion to dismiss Lively's claims, they might have actually been successful for the same reason. They were not adequately pleaded. I can't even begin to describe the lack of evidence of sexual harassment in Lively's case. I don't think I've ever seen such little evidence. Especially like I would, I do appreciate that, plenty of women experience all kinds of these kinds of problems and have little to no evidence because, it's hard to evidence everything. But, most of them would not then be going and, with a big scoop to, a huge news outlet like the New York Times. They would not be bringing lawsuits, where they couldn't at least prove their claims. And I do think if Wayfarer had filed motions to dismiss, then they might have actually been dismissed from Lively's lawsuits because her pleadings were just as messy, and they were messy. When you think about the professional day-to-day standard that lawyers write these things, if you look at the filing. Like I say, go back to the New York Times motion to dismiss, right? You've got an entirely different looking document. And that is what the norm is. Should Friedman have gone in and tidied it up? Should he have taken the opportunity to amend the complaint? Yes, I think so.
Before it was
based on his
I think he should have, but I will say this because I know what goes on behind the scenes. what we've been seeing, people have been talking. I mean, that this docket has been massively busy, and people keep sort of saying to me, "Oh, they're flooding the docket," and I know what they mean. I mean, they're really not flooding the docket, actually, considering all the parties that were involved at the time. There were 16 parties. There was actually, you know, a reasonable amount of things hitting the docket, but you had Friedman was representing, you know, half of those parties, not just Friedman, obviously, but, you know, Wayfarer's, the two law firms were representing half of the entire parties involved. And then you had Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, they had their set of lawyers. Leslie Sloan had a separate set of lawyers. Stephanie Jones has a separate set of lawyers. Jed Wallace has a separate set of lawyers. So, and the New York Times had their own lawyers too. So their lawyers were just dealing with their client, whereas I think what happened, in all the best intentions in the world, I think Friedman's firm and Fritz's firm were just absolutely snowballed with. They had motions to dismiss from everyone. They had to deal with all the interrogatories. They had to deal with all the subpoenas. There was meet and confers, you know, probably going on a daily basis behind the scenes, because they were doing it for each of their clients and then having to speak to the other side with each of those clients. And each party has different needs and different requests. What we saw hitting the docket was a lot. Trying to keep up with it, even with my experience, was hard. And I was working, you know, some days I was working on this case, you know, and only getting 3-4 hours sleep. And it was absolutely crazy. But what we were seeing that was actually public, that was going on the docket, was if it was 10% of the actual work that was going on, I'll be, you know, that'll be a hard limit for me. It wouldn't be any more than that, because most of it goes on behind closed doors and we don't really know what's going on. I have an idea, but there will be so much work going on. And I think they had to make a sacrifice. And I think they believed, as did so many lawyers, that, well, we're going to be dismissed and we'll get a chance to refile. And, you know, it didn't work out like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I completely agree, because they had, first of all, when Friedman, like when they filed, they had to win the PR game. So
Yeah.
Like from the filings, we later found out that actually Lively had sent them a cease and desist before the New York Times article was even published, right after her CRD. So
yeah, actually. There was two.
Yeah, two. And then the way she was fighting for AEO, like Friedman knew that there was a chance that they will not be able to get the story out. So this is what I think. So that's why I think he put the timeline of relevant events, because if he didn't do that in a regular filing, it could have been not fully pled the way, like all the details wouldn't be out there. We wouldn't be championing for the Wayfair parties right now had we not seen this detailed timeline and just obviously see what is happening. I think he fought for the PR, and he knew, I guess, from his experience, as you said, like if you have messy pleadings and everything. So he expected this, like he wanted to get the story out and then get all the information. And then I'm sure they were also doing the investigation, the third party, right? All the documents. So they were also probably working with that, what they needed, and to make a legal strategy as they go, because they also didn't know what was Blake Lively's strategy, besides the fact that I think they were going to push them into settlement behind closed doors, but then they lost that after because of the Exhibit A. I think even Lively had to re-strategize, and I think this amicus briefs, they were a new strategy that were added later on, because you know how with Harvey Weinstein thing, like somebody report and then everybody started coming up. I think they also thought somebody would come up as well, you know, that kind of validate, and nobody would come up, and then they could only find toxic positivity about Justin Baldoni. So I think they also like had that kind of plan, and they also had to shift strategy after the Exhibit A. And I don't know, none of the cast have been coming up, not a single person.
I agree. I do. I agree. And I had a thought process then. I mean, No, go on. See, do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
mean,
want to.
I was
Yeah.
taking it all in as if I was like in the chat, and now I'm not here. I like totally lost that I was here. Like I could talk. Yeah, I just I still can't stop thinking about what that dang footnote meant. And I was reading what had been up on there, and it said that because they continue to speak to the media after December 21st, then that is allegedly why Lively's team thinks that the smear campaign is still ongoing. And so I'm like, okay, well, that kind of explains a little bit of it. But
Yes.
the fact that I guess what I'm not understanding is how like that is relevant to look, yeah, well pleaded facts. Yeah, that should have gone to a jury. That's what I'm saying. It's like, how do we just take that as a fact? And then he quotes it in his ruling. Because I got to go look, because right there it says ID page 296, 297. I want to go look at that part where it says that. So the thing that she was talking about was Wednesdays, because the footnote that you had up, the one that was just up right now, that was from Monday. So the Wednesday one was the one about compelling the content creator stuff. Where remember he did partially denied it and partially approved it or whatever. So that's the one I'm gonna go sleuth. So see this one, yeah, I believe it was this one, 618. So Brent had the right one, I think. But the other one alluded to the motion to dismiss, where he had also said it in the motion to dismiss when he ruled on that. So I'm gonna have to go and sleuth it out and like really figure out why he's saying that this is like acknowledging it. And I get that he's just looking at it favorable to her, as he should, but then why is he not doing that with Baldoni? And then that's where people don't want to bring up like, you know, the big elephant in the room as to like his rulings. Because even today I felt like he was more towards Blake Lively, because he says, I'm gonna go ahead and do it through March just to test it. Like I don't see no harm in testing to see if anything comes up, because the opposing lawyer was like, you're not going to find anything because the one person left in December, and then the other person they were not communicating at all, because the Baldoni contract was only from August 2nd through like end of August, early September. So it's, you know, pointless. But then he's basically like, well, I still want to dig into these people's personal lives, because the opposing counsel made so many good points. For people who weren't on the call, he basically says, you know, those 2 points about the employees, you know, not being there anymore and all that stuff. But then he also talks about how there was no depositions, dates or any inquiries about them being deposed, and they were not even in the amended complaint or the original complaint. There's like no paper trail of them anywhere or being named or anything. And he points out that Lively's lawyer acted like it was fact when because she was up first, and she says it as fact that they were in the original complaint. And so then when it was the opposing lawyer's turn, he's like, I just want to point out that she just lied to you, Your Honor, basically is what he was saying. And like, he never even addressed that. Like, so she could just go up there and like say something false, because he goes, they were not in the amended complaint or the original complaint. They were not in any of those group texts.
No, I agree with that. I mean, because he
should have said something about that.
Yeah, no, because he actually, from what I've got my notes actually here because we were listening to that, weren't we? And what he's basically said is, well, has Anita gone again? Hold on, I've got to add it back. What he said, from what I remember, is, you know, well, if there's, you know, if no smear campaign went on to March, then there'll be, you know, little to nothing to produce. So I can understand, I can reconcile with that, because, you know, all they're doing, they're not forcing her to produce stuff that doesn't exist. They're just saying, you know, if you do have it, though, you have to produce it. It's not too bad in that sense. I do think it's a bit ridiculous, because I fail to see how, well, certainly with the one who's already left the employment, like, what is she going to have? You know, she can't take away the company documents. She might be able to say, because this is a document production, so there'll be depositions. That's a separate thing. So, you know, then you can say, well, what was your knowledge? What happened? Who said what? And you can ask her questions. But this is document production. Like, I can't see what documents that she's going to have. More than that, I can't see what she's going to have that, as her lawyer, Maxwell Breed, as he said, you know, well, you already had everything you've got. You've already had all the information from the mobile phone. And he kind of pointed, you know, he said since the fall. And I really thought he was going to get into Van Zandt, but he did not, which that was a bit disappointing. So I'm paying international phone charges for nothing. But yeah, I mean, I don't see what she's going to have, right? But she gets to say, I've got nothing, or I haven't, you know. The other thing is as her lawyer quite rightly pointed out, is they can get all of this from Melissa Nathan, and they probably have as well. So they've got it already from Stephanie Jones from the phone. They're going to get it from Melissa Nathan, from her discovery, and she is really the party that has to, you know, turn everything over. Third party discovery, it is fair game, but it's got to be reasonable. I can't see what the purpose of this is. Certainly in terms of the document production, maybe, you know, questions about what do you know, who spoke to who, you know, that kind of thing. I can understand those questions being asked. But yeah, I mean, the one saving grace, I think, for the judge in this is that he did say that Lively had to, you know, they were doing fee shifting on it. So, you know,
yeah, he was. I mean, all in all, that was the only thing that like got me. But he was pretty measured because I had to remind myself, okay, what they wanted was everything from July 1st to present time, as in today.
Yeah.
And all he gave them was an extra 3 months, basically saying like, I don't really think that would be that much more burdensome. It's just 3 more months. So in a way, you know, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, right?
Yeah.
And then also, I believe from what I heard correctly, and I don't know, you can correct me if this is wrong, but I believe that he did acknowledge the fact that it wasn't going to be all 13 requests.
Yeah,
and
so it's not all 13. So
1,
it's
5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, 1, 5, 6, and 7.
Which I was looking to see which ones were they, but I don't know. Was there ever like a document attachment that had all the 13?
Yeah, there is a subpoena in one of the. I have to go back through the fines, but there is a subpoena.
Yeah, I have seen that. Oh, but guys, I just saw another very interesting thing. I just saw People magazine just posted Justin Baldoni not moving forward with amended claims, but fun, I don't know, maybe interesting thing. They are not saying it is from Baldoni himself, Friedman himself. If you go to Team Justin Baldoni on Reddit, it's just the most recent post. Maybe CJ, if you want to read, or do you want me to go through it? Just like they're referring to basically say Justin Baldoni is not moving forward with submitting amended complaints, but they say that Baldoni is a person who wants to be vindicated, and that's all that he cares about. The attorney told TMZ, and that one he said that months ago. He knows who he is, he knows what he's done, and he knows what he hasn't done. He continued to he wants the truth to come out, and he wants to do that in the appropriate way. He's waiting for his day in court where he can speak out to tell the truth. And I think this is referring to a previous interview that I think Friedman had with TMZ. And then like it never says like an insider right now is saying. I think maybe like not to be a conspiracy theorist, because Friedman has always been very straightforward when he comes out and says stuff. And even with Popcorn Planet, it was very strange how it was on a Word document, right?
Yeah.
That was strange. The fact that Lively hasn't said anything is very strange. And now People is like making a post, and also we know that people and Melissa Nathan is quite close. I genuinely think something is happening. It's very fishy to me how this has been going on today.
Oh, I'm going to come to that now because
Sorry to interrupt. I just saw
no,
it now.
I just want to quickly answer this. No, CJ's gone. Yeah, it was actually Maxwell Breed's fault. He kept forgetting to mute his microphone, so the judge was kind of talking, but then he was also coming through the lawyer's laptop, and it was echoing, and it was a real pain. But it was actually his fault. Because
what is this about?
Oh, it's a comment on screen from Don't Fuck with Justice. So she says the judge blamed Attorney Breed for the judge's mic issues. He's infuriated and totally dismissed with the third parties were arguing. But it was actually the attorney for the 2 tag employees. It was his fault because when he finished talking, he kept forgetting to mute his mic. So you had Judge Lyman talking, who was then coming through, his teams on the lawyer's end, and it was just echoing, and it was really, really irritating to listen to because I was losing my mind over it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Are you able to dial in from the UK?
Yeah, I did. Oh, it's going to cost me a fortune, but yeah.
We're all losing money in this case, aren't we?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, again, like, I don't know what it is. My gut instincts are not wrong in this. Like, they haven't been so far, except the dismissal. And that one wasn't from Friedman's side. First of all, like, Friedman, I think, yes, he's been he's been getting the information out to the public. But his Exhibit A, I think that was like unprecedented. Is that the right word? Like, all of the lawyers are saying this is so unusual. I think, and I have heard somebody comment that like Brian Friedman is like a more old school type, so he knows how to play. He plays like also psychological lawfare. That was you.
That. I have definitely said that in more than one of my live streams. I've said, because I've seen it myself, and I've done it myself sometimes as well. But you have the lawyer who kind of shows up, he fumbles his papers, he acts like, a bit of a doddery old fool, and it lulls the other side into like a false sense of security. And then at some point, you strike the killer blow then, at some point in the hearing or whatever it is you're in, and it completely corners the other side because they're not expecting it. And Brian Friedman strikes me as that kind of person. I think he's got something up his sleeve. I really do. I think it's too quiet. I can't imagine Brian Friedman getting to this point and knowing that, we're all kind of watching with bated breath and supporting Justin. He's acknowledged the help that the content creators have given with the fines and discoveries, and he's been very open about that, which is I haven't seen that before in like these kind of trials. We didn't really have it with the Depp Heard case, even though it was quite clear that content creators were helping, passing information or making fines and stuff like that. There was no kind of public acknowledgement from Ben Chu, but with Friedman, he has said all the way, thank God for the content creators and, the internet sleuths. I would find it incredibly strange if Friedman didn't come out and sort of publicly make a statement to say, look, this is what we're doing, even if nothing else, it was for the content creators. I think a lot of what he has done has been for the content creators as well. Like Exhibit A, the big timeline. I am 100% sure in my mind that he put that out for the content creators to go sleuthing. And we did. So I think it's too quiet. I mean, again, Blake Lively, the first thing she does when she scores a victory is go straight to the press.
And about
crow
his
about it.
dismissal, like when it was dismissed, how she pretended, oh, she was vindicated, or you know what I mean? And it absolutely was not. She would be running like many laps, because this means like Justin Baldoni's whole case is dismissed, by the way, right? From to
Yeah.
my understanding. So she didn't. And that's why, like, while I do agree with Omar's point of view that there is a legal strategy that it would allow them to appeal. So I'm not a lawyer. I don't really understand that part. There's just no way that they didn't file this. They didn't file the second amended complaint. And then, first of all, Lively doesn't go on a victory lap. Her deposition is not yesterday, right? It was supposed to happen that way. And to be fair, right now, like Blake Lively obviously has a better leverage over him, this treble damages.
Yeah.
And I think just like she did during the movie with her list of 17 demands, and I do think they did have, probably their strongest case. Yes, we do believe that there was an SH. We do know that there was defamation, but according from what I understand, all the lawyers say it has a much higher bar to prove, and especially the civil extortion. So technically speaking, the other two points even judge couldn't dismiss, because I guess they have written quite valid, although not pled properly, it would have put them through to the next round.
Yes.
So, and that torturous interference, from what I understood, it also would include Sony at some point.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And
I think they're like, and the fact that Blake Lively isn't running victory laps, and also even Brian Friedman's statements are not coming directly from him. It's interesting how it's Popcorn Planet, and I think that he has the most followers, right? From like, if I'm looking statistically, and then it's People's Magazine. TMZ hasn't said anything. People is quoting an interview they had with TMZ before, maybe.
Yes.
It's that way. And finally, there was another point I wanted to it was just like little things that stick out to me from, it's like behavior analyst at this point, right? Because there's a certain behavior that they've had. And I can see how Blake Lively would be scared of the WME, because they have it on recording, like literal, was it Ari Emanuel saying that they fired Justin Baldoni because of this?
Yes, coming out, we were. I know we were quite hopeful for that, because there was that chain of events. CJ actually found that recording. She gave that to Colonel Kurtz to go live with, because at the time CJ wasn't doing her own kind of podcasts. And I emailed the link over of that to Brian Friedman, so I know he's got that. I do think something's coming. I think this is too quiet. What that is, I do not know, because I don't know what discussions are being had. It could be a settlement. I agree with Omar. I think part of the reason that they have chosen not to refile is to preserve the issue for, an appeal potentially later on. In
that case, Lively would still go on a victory lap, though, I feel like.
She might do. I mean, there could be a settlement going on, like a discussion going on. I don't know. I don't know, because I'd have to have all the context of all the discussions that's going on in the background, and they've got to be discussions. And the one thing I don't agree with Omar on, and I really love him, so I don't like saying this, is I do not think, and I'm going to say this because I was asked a question. So Ludwig, here's your answer. I don't think he is on the hook right now for the triple damages, because Omar was of the opinion, I think, when someone asked him the question, I don't know if it was you actually, when someone asked the question, well, or said, that the judge was not considering section 47.1, and Omar, I think he got a bit confused and thought, oh no, he just said that about the amicus briefs, but no, he did not consider section 47.1. He said he would he would consider it if Lively files for the damages and costs. for the fees and costs, but he has not to this point. He has not to this point considered it. So today, right now, in this moment, no, Wayfarer are not on the hook for treble damages.
But could they still ask him, like, so I don't really understand the legal part of it. He did say 47.1 wasn't a factor in the decision making, but then right after that, he invited them to ask, is like, oh, if you're gonna file for lawyers' fees or whatever, you can now. So, but that also goes the way Leslie Sloan did, you know, how she just immediately filed for that. Does that mean they will just apply because it wasn't dismissed due to 47.1? Does that mean treble damages does not apply?
Today, it shouldn't do. It shouldn't do because it was dismissed. Everything was dismissed. They basically, the judge said, well, litigation privilege applies and fair reporting applies. So we don't need to get into section 47.1. That's what he said.
But does that mean for the treble damages too, that like, and also because he's so unpredictable with his rulings now, right?
Yeah.
So there's still a threat over Justin Baldoni's head because his defamation suit is dismissed, and because Lively can dismiss her case, and then in a way that he will never be able to defend himself. This is so Lively does have a leverage against him, again, just like she had in production. And what are the things that would be a threat to her case now that she cannot probably spin? Is the deposition, is she doesn't have access because the judge didn't grant the what is it called, Taylor Swift things to be dismissed. That's right. And she doesn't know what Taylor Swift has given them. Well, then maybe they haven't given anything in writing. I actually have a thing that probably they made a deal. I don't think Brian Friedman would dismiss or like remove his subpoena without at least getting something in return, because he has a full right to investigate. I think maybe they tried to see what actually they're like, maybe to see if Lively is going to turn on all the evidence, right? Whatever Taylor Swift has. Or it could be that how to catch her in a lie. You know, if she lies during deposition, that would be a good thing for them.
I mean, the subpoena it was withdrawn without prejudice, so he can bring that back.
Yes.
And you know, if he needs to, that is on the table. The Taylor Swift texts are going to go towards Lively's claims against Wayfarer. So the fact that Wayfarer have had their claims either withdrawn or they've dismissed them is irrelevant, because the whole point of the Taylor Swift text was to support Lively's claim that she told her friend, and you know, etc. And you know, I think there's still going to be a lot of the discovery is still going to be relevant. You know, the stuff that was being that Wayfarer were conducting discovery for their own claims, it will still be relevant towards Lively's claims anyway, and the defence. I'm just going to quickly answer this. So the Rule 11 sanctions, he has not ruled on them. He will probably start considering them as part of the dismissal. What he's likely to rule, I don't know, but he may say
rules. If he says that, oh my God, if he does do that, there's no way he's not biased. Like right now we can say he's leaning, but if he has read at least 50 pages of Baldoni and Wayfarer parties' pleadings, and if he has read any of the text messages, right, it's not frivolous. It is not.
No, but I mean, I think there's a good chance. Like I read Sloane's filing, I think there's a chance she'll get her fees. I do, because you know she's actually made a decent case. I can't say definitively that's definitely going to be my opinion, because Wayfarer have a right to respond. So I want to see what they've got to say as well. But on principle, she's actually made a decent case, and they had very little to go on to bring a case against her. I think she was like the weakest one. But I've said all the way through this, James Batuska, he really changes his his allegiance, depending on who he's talking to. I have a huge problem with that text message as well, that screenshot of the text message to Brian Friedman.
I don't think that's legit, by the way. I
I'm
think that's
struggling with that.
doctored.
CJ, what do you think of that text message?
Which one?
The one that Leslie Sloan
Oh,
submitted.
the James Vitushka one.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. It was weird because every time, I don't know if it was something on that People magazine link. Because remember, I clicked on it. I was trying to go read on it, and then all of a sudden it said DNS server error or something for StreamYard, and then my whole computer crashed. And then I got back on, and then I went to go click on the People article again, and then it happened again. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go to the People article. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But anyways, I'm back. It was funny because it happened right when Anita was like, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but, and then it all of a sudden froze, and then all of a sudden all the windows shut, and I was like,
And then Nick Shapiro just butts in.
Just I was like, I thought it was all of us, but I guess it was just me. Well, I watched a couple of videos on that, and I think it might have been yours, Leanne. I don't know who it was that I watched that, or it was your thread where, no, it might have been, whose video was it? I remember somebody was saying to look at the screenshot, which was 30 something, right? And then
302 and 316.
Yeah, and then 14 minutes later is when the screenshot was taken. And then 3 hours later is when that other person received it, because then at the top it says 6:36, assuming that's the same day, right? So, it was Bocce Gohawks on TikTok that had that video. She basically was saying like, okay, so you're the person that writes the text, and it was really compelling argument because she's like, you wrote this text, but you didn't wait for the reply to screenshot, right? You screenshotted it, and then why did you wait 14 minutes to screenshot it and then send it to someone? Like, what were you thinking? Like, oh, I need proof of this, because you wouldn't need to screenshot it if it's in your own phone, because you would have a record of it. If Brian Friedman didn't reply, right, you would have that in your record forever inside your phone, right? It would be under your text messages. So you wouldn't need it for your own personal record. So then that means you would need it to screenshot it to send to someone else. Now, she was theorizing that maybe he screenshotted it and sent it to Melissa Nathan. And then maybe Melissa might have somehow sent it to Jen, and then that's how they got it. But it's also, we saw that James was working with Leslie, or at least said he would provide the documents he needed. So she may have gotten it that way. But then other people theorize that it's not even legit. Like somebody on X basically said, I typed in my phone, Brian Friedman, and then sent the message.
That was me.
Oh, that was you? That was Anita. And they were like, look how easy it was to just like doctor it up and just, it'll say today and then send it. But I mean, with all the metadata and stuff, and I just don't think that people are that stupid. Like that's how Diddy's case just recently, where one of the girls said that Diddy dangled her over a balcony and she presented pictures of injuries. And then they went into the metadata, and those pictures were taken on a day where Diddy was not in the same city. And it's on record that he was on tour and he was on stage at the time that was taken. So it couldn't have been the same day. So it couldn't have happened. And then we saw with Depp versus Her, where they were claiming that 2 pictures of spilled wine were from 2 separate events. But then like they went into the metadata to show that it was the same picture. And so I think knowing all that, like, I don't think James would be dumb enough to doctor something up knowing that.
No, and it's Leslie who doctored it up.
Or Leslie or anybody. I don't think that they would be that dumb.
Stephanie put the messages in her lawsuit that was actually about Lively. They are, that's the thing. They are in, they know, okay, so there's the thing. I think they're looking for smear campaign sign in March because they know there wasn't anything in August.
Yeah.
And I know that because I know that, wow, as if I was there, but reading from the messages, literally from day one, Justin Baldoni and Wayfair parties, they've been trying to avoid to fall into Lively's trap. That's why they were documenting everything as early as May 16, right? That's when they say that the wife hired somebody. And then later on in August, that's when they're talking about Brian Friedman joining. And he was in the loop. He was like, oh, I'm willing to take WME. They knew how dire the situation was. When they were doing the air quote like smear campaign, they were avoiding Lively's, like they were changing the words in the articles and everything just to not start a war. They had a truce. Stephanie Jones effed it up, right? And then there was the messaging, the 13th of thing, when they refused to say apologize. That's when the gloves came off.
I mean, Brent's in the chat actually, and
Oh, hey,
you know,
Brent.
hey Brent, he's actually made, this is a fair point, right? I mean, I've talked about Sloane's law firm quite a few times, usually to say that when I deal with their filings, I get a massive migraine that, painkillers do not touch. I don't know why, I just do. But Sloane's lawyers are incredibly good lawyers. And, they're the ones who did pro bono work for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and managed to recover. It was like hundreds of millions. It was a huge sum of money for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. So they are an incredibly good firm. So I'm loath to bash any lawyers in this at all.
I am.
I know you, but they are representing their client, and they are litigating on behalf of their client, and litigation can be brutal. But what Brent is saying is, and I agree with him, is I don't think that the message is doctored. That's not my take. My take is Leslie Sloan and James Watuska. There's a text message, where they are friends. They do, one says to the other, no one knows we talk and everything. They're actually, better friends than we have been made to believe. And I think that there's been some coordination between those two parties. I don't think it has anything to do with the law firms. I think that Leslie Sloan and James Watuska have kind of stitched Friedman up a little bit, or attempted to. I don't know how he's going to come around that. But because it was James Watuska who, from what my understanding, reached out to speak to Brian Friedman, which makes no sense then why he would then text Friedman and say, oh, but by the way, all the information I just gave you, or, anything I'm about to tell you, please, I don't want to be in this lawsuit. Well, why are you talking to the lawyer? If that's how you feel about it. There's things that don't make sense. I don't think it's anything to do with the law firm at all. I think they are, their client has given them this text message and they are presenting it as, evidence that, I'm not quite sure what evidence, because if Friedman has got information, Friedman can absolutely bring it into a lawsuit. He can't. It's not for James Watuska to give information.
And his silence right now is quite deafening, in my opinion. That's why I said, right now we're all speculating and conspiracy theorists, and for the reason that we have a lack of information. And just I do agree with the fact that most probably she didn't. But if you also remember, on August 29th, after they had gotten the Abel's phone and confiscated, and, because we know for a fact, Leslie and Stephanie, Stephanie was talking to we know for a fact, meaning from what we have read, right? I'm taking what's in the lawsuit as a fact. So if we look at it that way, Leslie was planting. There was also a part where saying Leslie has been trying to get all the journalists to say that, Baldoni's side is planting stories, and they've been trying to force, because they found in the phone there was no smear campaign. And then all of a sudden, the Ryan and Leslie make an alibi kind of thing. It's hey, stand, we don't commit anything. And this is August 29th, after everything that has happened. And that's where exactly Leslie says, hi, it's Les, to her client of years. And that's why I also found the same style message very suspicious. Hi, it's James, after you've already spoken to somebody.
Yeah.
And also, if they would have had, because also they asked for James Watuska's messages and everything, right?
Yeah.
If she had all this information, did James Watuska give it to her, and then he took a screenshot that says today, why not take a fresher screenshot that shows the date when it was done, if she wanted to do that? And also when she says that, Sarah Nathan herself called him a little creepy, out of context. Sarah Nathan was given articles where Justin Baldoni was called a little creepy on set, and they had to change that in the article.
Yes, that also didn't make sense to me either. I think the words were taken out of context. But my issues with especially with James Ratuska and Leslie Sloan, it's not just this text message that it seems so convenient that it was screenshotted in, almost immediately after it was sent. Like, why would you need to do that? But it's the mixing up of the words, I have an issue with that. Yeah, well, he misspoke. Well, that's all well and good, and I wrote this in my posts in real time when he did his declaration, and I was very much of the opinion, and this is just me kind of lawyering and kind of finding a thread and then pulling the hell out of it. So why, if he misspoke, right? That text message was in Wayfarer's first complaint and their amended complaint. It's been, all the way through this trial till now. Why are you only now saying, oh, by the way, you quoted me wrong? Why are you not, do you know what I mean? I feel like the fact he didn't say anything until he made a deal with the devil, or Leslie Sloan, as we'll call her, and, wrote his declaration. And at that point, a journalist, no less, right? This is not some village idiot. This is a journalist, right? So he should be able to get the right words. He's claiming now at this point, oh, I've made a mistake. I said the wrong word. That's not quite what I meant. Oh, and by the way, it's Friedman's fault. He should have asked me what I meant. No, mate, actually, I think that you should have clarified what you meant because it's your words.
I think we're still giving him benefit of the doubt, or like I mean, to Leslie, I think Leslie did tell him that, and by the way, and I think from what I've heard, Leslie loves to threaten, like from everybody that I've been listening to, all the stories behind the scene and how they've dealt with, even what is it called, hot mics with Billy Bush, is that his name? I think.
Yeah, Billy Bush.
Yeah, and he said that he had an encounter where Leslie says threatened him, and you know what I mean. That's how they act behind the scenes, and she's terrifying. And her being such a powerful PR, she has connection to what is it called? To ask Daily Mail to do this, and the fact that Vitushka just changed his lawyer. Right, that's another thing. I know there could be another reason behind it. Also, suspiciously, this message kind of covers all Leslie's legal grounds. I said that, and it's just too perfectly fit, just like everything has been by Lively Sides, everything premeditated in a sense that, oh, I didn't do it, and please don't put my name. And I believe when they filed with New York Times against New York Times Wayfarer parties, they had to change something and remove a journalist's name because they removed that. But that was 31st of December. So
yeah, but when you look at all of this, I mean, the collusion between Leslie Sloan and James Ratuska, normally I would think, oh no, that just sounds ridiculous and too far-fetched. But when you look at all the collusion that's been going on, and it's quite stunning actually, between, Sony and WME kind of pushing Wayfarer around and then dropping Wayfarer, and then you've got Lively and Reynolds and the New York Times, the Van Zandt subpoena, working with Stephanie Jones. I would not actually put anything past the two between Leslie Sloan and James Ratuska either. Nothing is far-fetched anymore about this. But it's also incredibly concerning that so many people, because I did deep dives. Obviously, we are well aware there is evidence that Liz Plank was kind of the middle player between Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni, and she is credited by Blake Lively for getting the role of Lily Bloom in the first place. And then you've also got I did a deep dive on Alex Sachs, who's been a long-term friend of Justin Baldoni's, like Liz Plank, and it's even she kind of the stuff I found, her history of ignoring with another kind of director, ignoring allegations of sexual harassment until it suited her, and then using those allegations then to take ownership of a production company. And the way there was an interview where she flatly refused to even acknowledge Justin Baldoni, even when she was asked a direct question about him. And I thought, everyone seems to be in this together. It's like everyone knows what is going on here. And I find that incredibly upsetting and disturbing. And I kind of wish that all the claims were still in place, so you would have that push and pull to find out what the hell has gone on here, because this has been a huge operation.
Oh, it has been from get-go. I like my theory is that this was from get-go. I have a very gossipy side of my theory, but then there are things that I can kind of back up with actually direct interviews from all of them. They didn't know Justin Baldoni. They found out about the book. This is, and franchise, they like, what's his name? Ryan has like a playbook that he followed that made him successful. And the fact that also Blake Lively was around Taylor and Ryan, who were billionaires, or like at least, I don't know, maybe not net worth wise, but they owned, well, Taylor Swift, I guess, is a billionaire, but Ryan Reynolds, from my understanding, he's not, but his portfolio includes a lot of billion-dollar companies. And from the get-go, she says that in an interview that has been removed from the internet right now, by the way, fun fact, yes. It has been scraped off, that it says that, first she noticed how popular the book was. And then she was given the script, but at the same time, she lies a lot. So I'm just going to take her at her word right now. But she talks about how she was really amazed by how she could cut through the fan base. And also Ryan Reynolds also talks about how it would be important for an actress to have a lead role in a franchise, because then it will allow her to pursue the side businesses or like side career, side quests. And from the get-go, the timing of all the complaints, whenever, she tried to suck up to people because she's very manipulative. And then Justin Baldoni put like a boundary. He was nice, but then he would say that, I kind of have a different vision. And slowly, like every time she got a no, there was something coming up. And this was all premeditated. And I think in the end, when they found out that there was no smear campaign, because I'm rambling on, but again, there are so many details in the messages in May 16 where Jennifer Abel tells Justin Baldoni, he's doing this, they're baiting you. Like they're in a message, it says something that they're baiting you, by Ryan Reynolds and following Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer. They're baiting him to do something. They knew what they were against. I really don't think they would ever do a smear campaign against them, because they were scared for their lives. Literally, they were scared for their lives, like after they came back from production. And then once they got on the phone and I realized there was no retaliation and they had to do this, because otherwise, why would you cherry pick the messages, right? They knew it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, really quick, I'm so sorry.
No,
I have to take a business call that I'm actually I'm like a minute late for. But sorry I didn't talk that much. I had that problem with and you guys were just like I was totally entrenched in everything, especially I love Anita and her theories and all that stuff.
Sorry, I can ramble on.
No, that was like I was all into it. But really quick on the James stuff, I always said that James and homegirl were like messy boots. Or Leslie were, stirring stuff up. Because I felt like if James had never stirred it up, and then I don't know, to an extent, Sarah Nathan also hit up Leslie, like what's going on, when it's like, if your sister works for Tag, why wouldn't you hit up your sister for comment? Like, is this true or whatever? Like, I don't know. I felt like everyone who's claiming that like Sarah and Melissa are working together, obviously they're not, because if she went to Leslie Sloan saying like, these 3 things are being said about Baldoni, why would you do that if you were like Team Baldoni or if you were working with your sister? It didn't make no sense. But yeah, definitely put a pin on that. And Leanne, thank you so much for having me on. I am so sorry that I have to go.
No,
I
thank
had
you.
problems with the internet. I mean, I'm hoping it wasn't Shapiro. Last time I had a picture crash on my late night CJ After Hour show. I had a picture of we were talking about quid pro quos, the Tyler Perry case, and all that stuff. And I had a picture of Brendan Sklenar and Blake Lively, and how the perks in Hollywood and stuff, and how he kind of got movies allegedly through Blake Lively, and then all of a sudden, like the whole picture crashed, and I couldn't get it back up. And then if I tried another like website or picture on the StreamYard, it worked. So I don't know. Could just be coincidences, could be something else. I don't know, but I appreciate you ladies so much. Thank you for having me, Leanne.
Thank
Another
you.
show soon.
Thank you.
All
right.
right, I'll catch up with you soon, CJ.
Okay, thank you guys. Thanks, chat. Appreciate everybody who showed up. We have a really good crowd. Don't forget to hit the like. See y'all.
Oh.
Some people are just good talking to the crowd. I'm just not
I
used to
know.
it.
I know. I'm not, but she's great. I mean, what do you think? If you had a guess, what do you think Friedman's going to do next?
I think my non-lawyer gut instinct is saying this silence is extremely unusual for all sides. I think there's two options. This no SAC was either agreed not to file because of the treble damages. Again, maybe, and also deposition or whatever for something, right? Because as I said, yes, judge didn't rule on 47.1, but nobody can trust him at this point. At least Friedman's side cannot trust him, right?
Yeah.
With all his rulings. And so I think there are either settlement talks, maybe, if the deposition was postponed, but I sure as hell hope like Friedman wouldn't accept, not Friedman, Justin Baldoni and Wayfair wouldn't accept a half-ass apology, while Lively does have an upper hand in the legal sense, but the things that she doesn't know before she goes into deposition are very, very detrimental to her case.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's one important thing though to remember is the defamation claim and civil extortion, they were all dismissed with prejudice. If Wayfair are choosing not to refile, because that they were dismissed without prejudice effectively, because the option was to refile. So they could come back in, I don't know if that's going to happen, because like I think that I personally think that Friedman may, if he's chosen to not refile those claims, it's for the purpose of preserving the issue. It's just my thought.
But where is Blake's victory lap? So I agree with that. That sounds legally sound. But where is Blake's usual behavior? That's another question. And why did this statement come not direct? Why does it come from On Popcorn Planet's streamed Word document, that not even a PDF? It was, I think, typed up and copy pasted. That's sus. And then another one, even People's Magazine are quoting his older interviews, some of the statements, and they're mishmashing it to sound like, they're saying, yes, they didn't do the SAC. They're making it sound. And the way how they trapped Taylor, like Lively, into the Taylor Swift messages, right? And I genuinely think this is a trap for something, or I don't know. So, like, whatever it is, I don't think it's as straightforward as they just are gonna defend themselves against, just be defendants. I think there's just way more behind it. It's either they've negotiated something for something, because Lively does have leverage with the treble damages or, judges' rulings so far.
It's possible. It is possible. I'm not ruling out anything because we haven't heard from them, so we don't know. But it's all
speculations.
Yeah, but I mean, it is also completely plausible that actually they have just decided that that they wanted to concentrate on defending the SH claims. I mean, litigation is incredibly hard. Even if you've got the money and the resources, it's emotionally it's quite a journey. It is for the lawyers as well. It's And we know that you know, there's been things that have happened. They've been through the ringer. They've currently got the public support. And one thing I'll say about Friedman is, even if you sort of the opinion of, well, he didn't do this right and he didn't do that right with as far as the complaints, and I've said myself, well, you know, they weren't written as, you know, like normal complaints were, but neither were Blake Lively's, in fairness. And I think that if Wayfarer had filed a motion to dismiss from Blake Lively's claims, they may well have you know, they may well have been dismissed because she provided very little law to support her claims. Well, she provided very little of anything to support her claims, but, you know, Wayfarer, their complaint contained very little case law and statute law for you know, the 12, 13 claims that there was very little law. However, Friedman's job, right, the one thing he has done absolutely amazingly, right, is at the start of this, very few people even knew who Justin Baldoni was. And when the CRD came out, nearly everyone hated him. And the turnaround has been absolutely amazing, right? It surpasses even what Johnny Depp got, because there are still quite a heavy amount of Amber Heard supporters, even after the trial. You know, he's gone and he's kind of, you know, proved that she defamed him by alleging, you know, sexual assault and harassment and everything. So even after all of that, there is still a fair amount of people who are against Johnny Depp. With Justin Baldoni, I feel like the turn, how sharp that was, how quickly that happened, to have so many people go from hating this man that they didn't really even know of to being such a strong supporter and fighting his corner.
That's because we messages that it wasn't stories. We weren't fed stories. We read the messages. That's the thing. And I think that was the shift. We had proof. We didn't have reasonable doubt. Like it was like exculpatory evidence, kind of, that's what he had.
But that's what their complaint did, you know, where you can say you can criticize it and say, well, it was lacking substance of law to support their claims, and that contributed to the claims all getting dismissed. That's fine, and I'm not entirely.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. But what he did was he very carefully, like the side by sides of, well, this is how Blake Lively presented the messages. This is what was missing. You know, and then on the other side, then he put the full extract with the missing context, and he gave everyone visuals, and that is why people are able to see, look, actually, I've seen evidence that, not that, you know, there was a lot more, I think, that could have been brought out to show what she did.
I think so too.
But he went through point by point of her 17-point list. I mean, he doesn't get any, you know, more forensic than that. Friedman did a fantastic job, I do think, in bringing public opinion, well, you know, completely into Baldoni's court, and most of them didn't even start there. You know, it's not like they loved him and then read Blake Lively's complaint and then suddenly now they were outraged and they hate him. That never happened. Most people hadn't even heard of him. So, you know, there was kind of a lot of people were originally Ryan Reynolds supporters. So, you know, now Ryan Reynolds has a lot less supporters because of Brian Friedman.
I was very sad about that, but also kind of not surprised. I was very sad because Deadpool is like our family outing. Like we just we have a very dark humor, right? It's a coping mechanism. So it's like we understand that. But sorry?
Same here. I was disappointed. I hadn't heard of her. I had heard of Justin Baldoni. I watched Jane the Virgin. I watched some of his stuff, and I liked his stuff. I had not watched her stuff, but I knew her as the wife of Ryan Reynolds. But I loved Ryan Reynolds. I now do not like Ryan Reynolds.
Fun fact about, maybe not so fun fact, but basically I remember this point. So like we saw this sexual harassment, and I read it all. Just, you know, I think I listened to somebody read it all when it just came out. I was like horrified for her because because when you just first hear it, you're horrified, but when you actually read it and you see what she was like, it's how she made it sound more, but when you read it, it was nothing. What is it called? I think that she was supposed to do the persistent kind of way, so she made it like little things here and there, and then like once, obviously, if Brian Friedman hadn't filed the details behind the scenes, we would have found out. But I precisely remember when, I think it was Elsrich, when she made a video about Justin Baldoni's proposal, and I was like, I was looking into Justin Baldoni's, like, they had photos and videos, and I was like, I started seeing evil, like, you kind of like, it was a manipulation.
Yeah.
Like, because when I remember this very precisely, I was like, oh, I didn't know him this way. I didn't like, I watched Jane the Virgin, but I was more like interested, what is it called? What's the blonde woman, like his wife?
Petra.
Petra, yes. Like I was really into her. I really liked her, and like she reminded me of Peyton from One Tree Hill for some reason. And basically, I remember all of these things, but I didn't know too much about it, and I believed, right? And so she smeared him so badly. I was like, oh shit, yet another man, who's pretending to be this way. And I was literally looking at his photos and I was like, oh my God, there's so much evil behind him and he's pretending to be this person. And then his Man Enough podcast was like, everybody's just digging shit. As soon as New York Times hit and then Exhibit A hit, and all the shit we dug up. So Justin Baldoni is winning because now Blake Lively couldn't silence him because I think that's what was her plan. So right now she's trying to get out of it in a way that she can still play victim. And she knows that Justin Baldoni wants vindication one way or another. So I think behind the scenes, probably they're making some deals how she dropped all of it. We don't know. We will never know the legal strategy.
Well, we may hear something, if something gets filed. We may learn a lot. It'll be interesting to see what happens the rest of the week, And we still got Stephanie Jones. We still got, currently at the moment, we still got Jed Wallace is in, and he's kind of segregated, in Texas. I mean, so you got those two things are still going on, and the meat, the bits that everyone's like, well, Van Zandt and that applies more to Stephanie Jones. So we could still see that very much coming in. I know people are kind of waiting.
I think Friedman is using it for something. Like, I think like there's so many things he hasn't brought into court. To me, it really sounds like, I hope there's some kind of RICO case happening. I don't know what it is, because it could be, because if it is true that she has threatened Taylor Swift, and at the same time, how specific Friedman was the time of the call that he got, and in the sworn affidavit, that was a bit too specific. I don't think he would have lied, right? About
absolutely.
That.
And I did something on this as well, because what was it? She wanted something where it was just that's it, the subpoena against Friedman and his firm. She wanted his mobile phone records, but she was very much, it will just have the phone number and the date and the time and the duration of the call. Okay, but what information is that going to give you? Unless you are going to be dialing all those numbers to find out who they are and if they have any knowledge of this case. The only other logical reason you would have to want that information, which is just phone numbers on specific dates, is you might recognize the numbers. Like, is that Taylor Swift's dad calling on February the 14th, like Brian Friedman said? So I think that's what that subpoena was all about. That part of the subpoena. But I mean, he's got something. He's got something.
There's no way he dropped the subpoena without anything, because he has a full right to subpoena Taylor.
Exactly, and I mean, an affidavit, right? So we got a declaration, right, and an affidavit. And I was asked earlier, well, what's the kind of, sorry, my computer's playing up. What's the difference between them? So obviously we've got affidavits coming out all over the place. Yeah. And James Batuska, for instance, signed a declaration. So did Leslie Sloan. But Brian Friedman did an affidavit. Now, an affidavit is kind of a bigger deal, actually, than a declaration. So when
because they can be, it's like under the penalty of perjury, right?
Well, they're both under the penalty of perjury, but an affidavit is a sworn declaration in front of like an official officer, like a notary of the public, that kind of thing. You know, an affidavit is very, very serious. It's a step up from a declaration. A declaration can be used in a variety of ways outside of the court as well as inside court. But an affidavit is quite specific to legal proceedings. And for Friedman, a lawyer to stick his neck on the line enough to put an affidavit out, to sign an affidavit to say, this is all true. I had this tip off. I followed it up. She has been threatening Taylor Swift, and her lawyer has been, contacting Taylor Swift's lawyer, threatening Taylor Swift that way too. I believe Brian Friedman 100% because I know how serious an affidavit is, and it is much more of a serious thing than any declarations that we have seen from James Batuska and from Leslie Sloan. So that's why I think there is something. Unless Taylor Swift's camp is again
also playing them.
Is also playing them as well, which I don't think is the case, because why is Taylor Swift not supporting her friend?
And and from the get-go. So another reason why I think this was all preemptive is like the fact that nobody came out when she, on the 21st, she made that statement. She told them, like, I think she was covering her ass when she filed this lawsuit, right? Because she was defaming him. And also right now she didn't have any leverage against him after the premiere was done, and they didn't take a public apology, right? So why would he apologize for something, he knows he didn't do? And she still needed, like, she had come so far with the movie, taking over the movie. This was just like last step. And that's why, like, they did that. Like, also, let's say if she thought he had a smear campaign, why not just file a lawsuit and then subpoena in public? Then why go through the Van Sham, right? She could have done her exact lawsuit by subpoenaing them, because they would have been allowed, right, to say this. Or they could have found some, because they obviously saw the Stephanie Jones messages. They could have said that, Stephanie Jones, who was the ex-PR, has found in her work messages that this is what it is. Why subpoena through Van Sham to include it into CRD and then it's just like, it's not normal how she went about it. That's why, like, I will die on that hill as well, that this was all preemptive. This was not even about smear campaigns. She knew there was nothing. This was her actually pushing them into settlement, because then the cease and desist immediately, right? It just doesn't make sense. And also there was I was trying to make by the way, I'm gonna go get diagnosed with ADHD, because so many people have told me I might have. So but I have just so much information with the messages. Like, the timeline is just so important, which I think the lawyers are missing with what happened. And in the big thing is, like, Justin Baldoni, he was never about revenge. It was about clarifying his name. So while clarifying his name, he never really meant to bring her down. Technically, all the sleuths brought her down, right? All the people, they started digging up, because we have been blind. We have been ignoring all these things that people, we didn't see in public. We were like, oh, how cute. She's so creative and everything. And then we find out there was a man in the basement who had been to hospital like a month before the premiere, you know, or like 2 months before the premiere. So we saw what it took, and then we started seeing for who she is, for what Ryan is. And I genuinely think Justin Baldoni didn't want this. Yes, he's obviously glad he's vindicated, but all he wanted to do was clear his name. And he hasn't been able to clear his name legally. And I think that's the next step. And I think that's what they're going to fight for. Yes, public opinion is great, but court of public opinion is not going to get him the jobs and the dreams that he had been working hard for. And again, excuse my rant, but there's just I'm angry for him. And I don't think he's angry as we are at this point.
No, I agree.
Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we love it.
But for me, like, again, I have a non-legal commentary, but I don't know law, but I know people. That's what I say. I know behavior when I see one. As an observer, as a person who's always been triggered by people, like who reads emotions to know how to act, I can tell what's happening, you know, like you read cues, what this means. And yeah. I just pray, I'm not a religious person, but I hope everybody prays to all their gods that Friedman has something up his sleeve, because this would be the biggest injustice. And I think Justin Baldoni would also be very sad that such an important law was used against him and would actually potentially damage the victims, because after this maybe people are going to bring up this 47.1 and change the law, right?
Yeah, it could do. And I think something needs to give on that. I agree. I think I can see the idea that they had behind it, and it absolutely should, you know, like if there's resources missing to provide to people who don't have Blake Lively's wealth, then something needs to be done. But putting any law in a position where if someone so much as tries to defend themselves, or, you know, like, I mean, it's a natural thing. If someone falsely accuses you, it is almost, you know, like a reflex to then turn around and want to accuse them of lying and prove your innocence. That's just a, like, so I've always had an issue with this thing. I mean, I've got less of a problem, say, if it was to if the case was to move forward to the end, get to trial, and then the person claiming defamation, the alleged sexual harasser, if they lost the case at that point,
that's fair.
Then yeah, I can see that as a kind of deterrent. But Blake Lively was not meant to kind of benefit from all of these fees and damages. She, you know, we're no longer helping people who need the resources, you know? And I think there has to be, I think in that situation, maybe something mandatory where, you know, because obviously Section 47.1, right, applies to sexual abuse, sexual harassment. Well, there's two elements there, right? It's obviously it's conditional based on the complaint has to, well, you don't even have to make a complaint, which is just wild. But the belief that you have been sexually harassed has to be in good faith and free of any malice, any actual malice. And I feel like that should be a mandatory fact issue. You know, if the other person at the other end, right, like in this case now, right, that where you've had dismissal at such an early stage, right, but yet there's potential for Blake Lively to come to a judge, ask him to consider all the fee shifting provision of 47.1. Well, then I think then in those situations, exploring actual malice and whether the belief that there was sexual harassment or sexual assault was in good faith or not, that should be a fact that for the jury to decide automatically. So there should not be motions to dismiss on that situation. But I think there's also with sexual harassment, when we're talking about it, it's the definition, right? So it's not just the actual malice, it's do the claims themselves meet the legal definition of sexual harassment? And with Blake Lively's, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it meet that kind of the legal definition. Because I went through it and I did a big thread on it, I had the legal definition there and went through it, and we covered each. I mean, you just look at the 17-point document, which is the only thing that anyone from Wayfarer even signed. Hardly any of it, no, in fact, none of it has got anything to do with remotely sexual harassment. It does not expressly state this person did this on this date. It doesn't say anything about that. It's so broad, you could read it any way, and she has presented it
She doesn't remember the dates because she didn't have access to the schedule anymore, right? She had to make it. That's why I think it's wish-washy, because she had to make it up from her memory. And even the Steve Sarowitz thing, when in the hospital, I think she was like, oh, when did I see him? Oh, we were on the hospital, he was on set. And like literally sounds like it was made up so that it makes it sound like this was horrible.
But I mean, why is she not? If she thinks,
she doesn't.
I know. Let's just say, for instance, she thinks that Adam Monshine, right? So that the actor who played the OBGYN, the guy who was apparently there for no other reason than to look at a quote unquote nearly nude genitalia, why is he not being sued? If he was part of all of this, right, and he was there just to kind of harass her and be up close and within
because she wants the movie. That's what I think. And by the way, I don't think it's the movie rights she wants only. It was the whole Colleen. It wasn't just that, because she wants to be a producer at the end of the day. She said that it's not just acting that she wanted. This movie was her gateway to Colleen Hoover. She saw Colleen, when she talks about this movie, she talks about Colleen Hoover. And right now, like whatever production stuff that they might have agreed on, it would be very interesting to see what comes out in the next 2 years. I saw that the B for Effort has an Instagram page now. I don't know if it had it before. And so it will be very interesting to see and watch closely what's happening with that, because there's, how to say, the reason why she had to file this lawsuit is like this was her last chance to redeem what she fought so hard for. And that's why everything, her legal case is just so perfectly legally backed up. Like, there's so many loopholes that they've already covered, everything that they have done. And when I remember, I got angry. I got angry when I read Ryan's motion to dismiss.
Yeah, because that was just ridiculous.
It kind of sounded like they already knew they would be dismissed. How cocky he was, right? He's like, even if I did it, you are a predator. Even if I didn't know, you're still predator. Even if I didn't think you did it, but you said you are a predator. Like,
I know. And most of his motion to dismiss was based on stuff like Baldoni stuff, which is outside the four corners of the complaint. So I'm not even sure how he managed to pull together a successful motion to dismiss. It felt like he wasn't taking it seriously, but I'm inclined to agree with you. It's almost like they knew that was going to happen, and that makes me question then, right? Because they're not pushing for. So she wants the California law to apply to her claims, but she wants to bring a Californian subpoena back under Judge Lyman. And in that argument, in that entire, because I had to look at the motion to quash, and her entire argument is, well, Judge Lyman knows the case. He'll save time because he's just dealt with success. He's just dealt with the motions to dismiss. He knows the case inside out. So, he should probably deal with this as well. And I was like, yeah, I think that if this subpoena gets back to Judge Lyman, like, I'm not even going to need to, watch and see what happens, because everyone will be telling me, oh, well, he's going to give it to her. And you know what? I keep getting, they keep getting proved right as well.
Yeah.
So, like, what am I doing here? That's where it's like, well, I'm just here, I'm spending a fortune on Pacer just to be, finding out what people are telling me for free.
I'm gonna go as like, I'm gonna say this, don't hold this against me. All right. I'm just gonna say it here because I just feel like I even think the judge himself was premeditated. Like, this is how it feels. I'm gonna take that far. How it was done, how the subpoenas were filed in the because they're New York based. Okay, got it. Obviously, if they have a filing, they don't want to be flying back and forth with New York. Also, why federal case? Federal things, they're not televised, just in case. Like, it looks like they were ready for any scenario.
Yeah.
And for me, that makes no sense. Gottlieb, Ezra Hudson, she's part of the 47.1 with all these amicis that have come forth. I think that was the indirect proof for me, at least, like how quickly she could gather all these people.
Yes.
Like, they're well connected. As a person who comes from an extremely corrupt country, and with everything that I see that's happening in the United States right now, I don't think it's so far-fetched to think that for a judge, this is just a small claim. You know what I mean? That, oh, it's not a big deal, kind of, I will dismiss this. Like, I don't see this such a big, like, it's human being. Just people hold people at such high standard, and there's just like for the Karen Reed thing, what was happening, right? Yeah. It is not so far-fetched to think that somebody, maybe like corrupt in the sense that, no, it is corruption. Isn't this corruption? If that's what I'm saying is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think it is so far-fetched to think that this was, premeditated even to how to get it to the judge. I know that judges can assign themselves cases as well. They can take on things if they're connected, or somehow Salma Hayek, people have been connected. I'm not saying that it's true, but there are just too many loose puzzle pieces that kind of are giving a picture together. They're not connected directly, but if you like step back and look at it, it makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're not conspiracy theorists that are saying the earth is flat, right? It's more like we have seen stuff. We were in Judge Lyman's side. We're like, oh, he's making decisions. And then after March, after motions to dismiss, he has been brutal.
Yeah.
So again, another rant. I'm going to stop talking, please. Sorry, I didn't want to take over. It's just like there's so many things that we can ignore. We can say that, oh, I don't think, it just looks like it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do agree. I mean, I definitely, like I say, I feel like he's leaning towards Blake Lively a bit. And I am starting to, I've resisted quite heavily from a professional perspective, I guess, because of course there are corrupt lawyers, corrupt judges. That happens, absolutely happens. And I did in my video, I did a whole thing about the other lawyer, one of the partners from Michael Gottlieb's law firm, with the university scholarships. I can't remember the details off my hand, but I kind of said, oh yeah, look, this guy, he was disbarred for a couple of years, and so on and so forth. And he actually worked at Wilkie Farr law firm. But I did find it quite persuasive, shall we say, when I saw what Blake Lively had put in the joint stipulation with the argument about the subpoena against Friedman's firm. When she was, her argument, I mean, it was only about a page and a half, but why the subpoena should be transferred back to New York. And it was all about, how good of a job, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but, it's basically how good of a job Judge Lyman's doing. Well, he knows what he's doing, and he's already so clued in, you don't need to waste your time. And I thought to myself, why? Because to me, I could not read that and come away from it feeling like she wanted that subpoena to go back to New York because she knew she would get it granted. She'd have her request granted.
Sorry, when was this?
The subpoena for served on Friedman's firm.
That was granted.
No. I felt like the way Blake Lively wrote her argument for the transfer to be transferred, I came away feeling that the reason she wrote it like that was because she was kind of confident that her request would be granted.
And they have been.
Ludwig, no. He's not gay, he's married.
That means nothing nowadays. Well, Ryan Reynolds is like, oh, by the way, I can get gossipy about this as well, but I've kind of started like tracking Ryan Reynolds' gayness. I'm swearing, for the lack of better word.
Oh, well,
They're
you have
just like,
to come and talk
I
to us
have
about that when you've got it.
About the dismissal, like, okay, this is obviously my speculation and like what I imagine. So I have no proof of it per se, but observation.
Yeah.
There was a lie detector test with Hugh Jackman when he's doing a lie detector with Ryan Reynolds, and then he's like, "Is it true that your and Blake Lively's marriage is like planned?" He doesn't deny it. He says we have a 25-year contract, but he makes a joke about it. And then I've heard about lavender marriages. Obviously, these are just speculations. And one of the interviews back in 2015 or 14, they were talking about Deadpool, and then he talks about how, they should be introducing more pansexual. I have nothing wrong I have nothing against it about it. I just think that their behaviors, his anger, his violent outburst at the world through his movies, the way he acts, and based on his demeanor. By the way, I've been in EMDR therapy for 7 years. For me, I'm very alert to human behavior because it calms me down, because it helps me to cope with the world. And so I really observe people, things. Obviously, this is through the camera. It's not the same thing. But, we're in the slow sit. We're trying to figure people out.
Yes.
And for me, that is literally, I think Ryan Reynolds had come to a point where he was kind of at peace with himself. I can't believe I'm defending him, and I'm not defending him in that sense, but I think they were coming to an end in their marriage. And I have a mini Deadpool video about, in my opinion, which proves the 17 point was, premeditated. I can't believe Friedman didn't use it because I sent an email to him about it. That was rude. But
he doesn't reply, does he?
No, he doesn't. I have sent him 3 emails. I've actually sent him like a very long ass email where, anyway, I'm going to post that video now that it's dismissed. I think it's important to the world see it. I'm just very bad with technology and editing, and I've lost so many clips here and there. Anyway, so I think Ryan Reynolds, he was finally coming to an end. And in the Deadpool scene, it says basically Nicepool was caught in a crossfire of their fight. My personal gossipy theory, I would like to put a disclaimer, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were going to go ahead for a divorce. And I don't know how they had the 4th baby and whatnot, but to my understanding, Blake Lively is she's always wanted to work, and she hated actually being a mom, stay-at-home mom. She's always waited, not she hated being a mom, sorry, I take that back. She wanted to go and be famous, and like Taylor and Ryan. And Ryan has kind of worked through his anger. There's an interview where he talks with Andrew Garfield, I believe that's his name, in October.
Yeah.
And he is very self-reflective. I know he has I think he has worked through those things. And I think maybe he's coming to terms with himself. That's when your anger starts calming down. And by getting this movie for Blake, I think he was going to give her the money, the fame and everything like that. She wouldn't have anything against him after. I genuinely feel this way. And I think that's why Ryan Reynolds also went so hardcore against Justin Baldoni, because this was also his escape.
Yeah.
This is obviously, this is very speculative, extremely gossipy, probably 0% true, but based on behavior and everything, like I've listened to all the gossipy stuff as well that people have been reporting, the blind items, I think that's what they're called, how people have been having behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I think Blake Lively was supposed to get this movie be this big thing. That's why she wanted like this to be marketed like next to Deadpool, as if it was like a romantic movie, because as a domestic violence movie, it wouldn't sell as much. She was going to be the face of it. And then like that, they were just going to offer money to Justin Baldoni and he was going to leave. But he didn't become Tim Miller.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so again.
No, that makes sense. That makes complete sense, actually.
Because this is like behavior that has happened before. Because why else would you go so violently in this lawsuit when you know when you're lying, right? So she knows she's lying. She knows she has to prove all of this. I think they thought like Justin Baldoni was going to fold against SH claims because he has folded behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
No, that's true. Yeah.
And I never thought for a second she thought she was,
No,
I never for a second, not even for a second, I thought like, oh, maybe she misunderstood. She knew what she was doing.
I mean, I agree with that. I do think, well, he gave in to quite a lot. I don't think it was all her though. You know, I think he had we've seen text messages, you know, where Sony were kind of putting some pressure on her. And I'm sure, you know, there were other people, not her, on Wayfarer, and I'm sure other people were too. It's quite astonishing. But no, I mean, the thing is, right, from a legal perspective, when she filed the CRD and put all those allegations in the New York Times, he had nothing to lose. You know, he had nothing to lose. And when someone has nothing to lose, they're about the most dangerous. And I don't mean like literally dangerous. I mean, you know, that's going to be everyone has a limit of how much they'll put up with. Even really passive, you know, gentle people like Justin Baldoni will get to a point where enough is enough, because they may be able to take it and just kind of look past it, but they have a wife, they have children, they have family, they have, you know, friends, they've got business relationships, and there comes a point where so much damage is being done to all the people around you. It's no longer just about you. And that is where I think she made her mistake, and she completely underestimated, because whilst he is a passive person, I fully believe that he is someone who would, you know, fight to the death for his family. And his family were besmirched in all this, and they would have been affected and publicly humiliated, as would, you know, Jamie Heath is obviously his friend, Steve Sarowitz is his friend, you know, and the two PR women I'm sure he
his employees, right? Kind of. Yeah. He's a person who loves to stick up for people, right? And that's his life mission. Have you watched the interview when, I think it was like in November or something, when, you know, when the lawsuits came out, and then we were watching it retroactively when it was released?
Oh yeah, but is it the
He was defeated.
Yeah, he looked terrible. He did. He looked. I really felt for him at that point. And I think that was like the cement for me. Like I'd already seen all the evidence and that dismantled Blake Lively's case, but I feel like I feel like we need to, you know, when he did that interview, which would have been before the CRD was even filed, he just looked completely broken, and I felt awful for him.
Yeah, and they thought like, oh, nobody is this good. For sure, people are gonna come out, you know. And they've been like, they had to hire freaking Nick Shapiro to dig shit on him, and all they could come up with was toxic positivity. I think they can't believe it. Oh, fun fact: there's an interview like Deadpool. What's his name? Ryan Reynolds. Well, Deadpool doesn't matter. Same. Ryan Reynolds, he had an interview in Hungary about Deadpool, not in Hungary, with a Hungarian journalist. I have screen recorded that. He says that, oh, it was pleasure to kill Nice Pool. I couldn't wait because I like to kill a version of myself every time. And I also like to play jealousy in this role because like you have something and you have this childlike desire where you look at someone and say that I want that. I wanted his guns. Like he says it out loud. It's an interview and I have a screen recording of it. I'm happy to send a link of it to you. I will send it on X. Like, and there's also like, there's literally a timeline of how Nice Pool, like it was malicious of everything, you know. I just wish Brian Friedman had just put it in that way. I wonder if it would still be covered by Satirical Thing though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I kind of expected that to happen, for that to kind of get thrown out, because obviously Satire is protected. But I mean, also the movies do have that disclaimer at the end, you know, where, you know, it's like no, like any likeness for anyone living or dead is purely coincidental, and the deliberateness of this kind of blows that out the water. But you know, satire is protected, so
I think what Friedman should have done about this is like, oh, we're not suing it for defamation because of this like just this movie part, how this character came to be. It's okay, that's fine, he can make all the joke he wants, he has the freedom, but I want to prove what they have done to Justin Baldoni because they wrote this based on the story that he had. So there's nothing wrong with them doing the satire. I would be like, cool, funny, that was great. But in that story, they told our story, what happened behind the scenes. I wonder if that would have been protected. Do you know what I mean? Like, if not to use it as a defamation or like a likeness thing, but as if they had an approach where it's like, this is what they did. If you don't believe me, like believe what they say, you know. And it's Lady Police Blake Lively. It's in front of the flower shop. Like they love Easter eggs. They've confessed to all of this, you know.
yeah.
I wonder if it would be admissible.
Well, you see, the problem I had, right, with that, although I agree that in theory it's satire, but it did go to, like, it was making fun of allegations that were in this lawsuit. It was referencing claims and allegations and events from the lawsuit. I don't know. I don't think the judge should have kind of just applied that myself. I think he could, if he wanted to, he could have gotten around that. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
he has until Friday Brian Friedman has to redeem himself until Friday. That's what I said. I'm giving him until Friday to prove, like, to make sure that, you know, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be bashing him in that sense. I was like, I have very little hope now, legally.
yeah.
I still think he did the right thing. Now everybody knows the story. But I do hope he has something legal behind, like, that we don't know of.
Well, I mean, because obviously we'll be watching this now for the rest of the week, see what happens, whether a public statement comes or some kind of motion or letter gets filed where we get a bit of a window into what's happened. Are you going to join us again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and come and talk when something does happen.
Oh yeah. I would love to. When I talk to Omar, like he's very legal and stuff. He dismisses all my humanly
I
gay
know.
gossip, but I understand.
No, I do watch him. I watch him do that. I'm like, oh no, I would have
I think they go
argued it
hand in
different.
hand. But I do understand, like, because he has been right. It's like, yeah, they're right. Legal perspective is very
Oh
important.
no,
That's what's important, right?
yeah, no. But as far as the law goes, I mean, Omar is, from all the lawyers that are covering this, Omar is my favorite. I adore him. I love his soothing voice. I am desperately trying to get onto his show.
Oh,
There's a campaign like to try and get me on because he honestly is
oh, I talk to him. Oh, I harass him on daily basis with questions. So I'll get you. Like, let's get you. I think he
hook
told me
me
that
up.
maybe later on today. Like, let's get on. I'm happy to harass him. So like, he's
Well,
had enough of me, but.
I'm hoping to. I'm gonna go head up to bed now because it's like 1 o'clock in the morning my time.
Okay.
But yeah, any time because I need a bit of notice because I know he goes on quite late, and when he goes on, it's normally 5-6 o'clock in the morning my time.
Yeah, he ruined my sleep time like a month ago. Now I'm trying to get back to it, right? So I used to go to sleep at like 6 a.m. because of him, because he's California time. But yeah, he goes on a live sometimes when it's like 3 p.m. when he has time at work, which is around midnight for us EU. Actually, in the UK, it would be 11 o'clock.
3 p.m. What is he? He's on. He's on West Coast. He's on Pacific time, isn't he?
Yeah. It's a 9-hour difference with him and I, but with you it would be 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to like add you to. Do you use? Okay, I guess this is live. We'll talk about it later. People don't have to hear this part. So I think I opened X to follow you, by the way, because sometimes I'm not patient to read everything. And I just read as a summary. So I opened X because of you, and then I listened to obviously Lauren and everything. Like I listened, and then I found your YouTube channel. Then Omar, I harassed him with my theory. Now, yeah. Anyway, okay, yeah. I think it would be great. So let's get you on as well.
It'd be lovely. I mean, I've been on a few of Lauren's lives, so I need to get her on one of my own now because now I've got my own channel kind of going. So, but I mean, I love Lauren so much. She's so funny.
Yeah.
But there's times when I watch her and Omar together, and they have fantastic personalities. But when I watch Omar's stuff, it's usually first thing in the morning or last thing at night when I just want like a voice of reason to kind of share his opinion to see, because I like to compare my opinion after I've given it on a thread or something. My legal take. I like to then see what the other lawyers think because I'm aware that I'm not a US attorney, so I'm learning as I'm having to research quite a bit. I don't practice it every day, so it doesn't roll off my tongue. But I'm having, I do my research, do my thread, and then I go and see, well, what do the other US lawyers think about this? Am I close? Am I not? But when Lauren, I usually watch her in the middle of the day then, because like when I'm more wide awake and raring to go, and like I get I get secretly a little bit like, because every time Omar's going to make a really good point, Lauren completely distracts him. And then he loses his train of thought, and I'm like, Lauren, stop.
Yeah.
Let him finish.
Yeah, that's true. That's why sometimes Omar just rebels, and then he's like, I'm doing this on my own. Nobody interrupt. But yeah, he has great thoughts, and he's been very kind. He's been patient. I think there's Cassidy, there's you.
Yeah.
Lauren. Before I used to read you on X, and there's another person like who posts like there was a lawyer who had a very calm voice. She was just breaking it down, and although you are not a US lawyer, but you can still understand what it means. So one thing we know for sure is like the law might say one thing, but the judge rules something else. So it's not about what the judge is going to rule. It's about what is written, what it could mean. And I think it just really pumps everybody up, and it's very interesting to read it from all over the world and what people understand. And there's like, it's a community of people where we're not alone, because we have husbands, wives, kids, friends who have kind of unfriended us at this point because of this lawsuit, you know, but we have somewhere to go and project. So it's been great.
The community is a fantastic community. It really is. So collaborative as well. Like, you know, there's, you know, we absolutely all help each other, speak to each other all the time. And it's such a wonderful community. And I'm immensely proud to kind of, you know, I've been kind of welcomed into it and everything. Because this kind of only happened for me 3 months ago. It was a complete accident. So it's been really nice. I think you know, I'm really, it's nice to find some harmony, you know, in such a contentious lawsuit. But you know, I've had the odd issue. No, that's been quite public. But yeah, generally, I mean, no one apart from one person, no one has really sort of like said, well, you know, kind of pushed back and gone, well, you know, you're not a US lawyer, so, you know, you don't understand our law.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah,
English is not my first language. I don't live in the US. I live in Hungary. I'm not from Hungary. I still have an opinion, and I'll still say it. Nobody will tell me. Although we don't even have free speech, so I will still say it. As long as YouTube allows me, X allows me, I will say it.
Exactly.
So it's
okay. I mean, you know, it's a public lawsuit at the end of the day. So you know, everyone can have an opinion. I mean, thankfully the law in the US is written in exactly the same language as it is in the UK. So as long as I have the ability in one country or another to read it and interpret what it means or what it could mean, then, you know, I'm kind of golden.
Yeah.
So you don't need much more than that, really.
And actually, like, for me, like, I don't have any legal background, and right before the dismissals were issued, I have like a 10-part video that I've created, basically going month by month what happened behind the scenes and how we got here, but not looking at it retroactively, but as if we were going through the timeline, so that, you know, whoever would join later on. And then it was dismissed. I was depressed for a whole last week. I'm not joking. Like, Omar was like, "Are you okay? I'm so sorry." Like, Omar was writing to me, and I'm like, "Yes, what is this? I'm devastated." Sorry, that was my like crying voice. And then I gave lost hope, and then more things were filed. I was like, well, my video is like useless now. But now again, I'm like, no, it's not useless. I need to go back to posting it, because this will be dismissed and his story will be lost. People will read legal filings and everything, but I just want to make sure that people don't forget what actually happened to him, regardless of the outcome of the legal things. You know, nobody can take that away from him.
No.
And if there is, you know, I have my website where actually I have handwritten, I mean, I've copy pasted and everything, all the messages, so that it's clearer. Because you know how in some document it's not very clear.
Yeah.
I have all of this. I have this timeline that it's ready, but I just have super big anxiety. I was like, I'm going to post it. I'm going to get sued for something. And then all of these things. So I just have to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not Romanian. I'm not even from Europe. Somebody's asking if it's like Romanian.
Oh, okay. No, that's fair. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Anita, I would love you to come on, like, and, you know, kind of, you know, and
text me, let me know.
Yeah, well, if you send me a way to contact you, just drop me a message on X and let me know how to contact you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and I will definitely do it, because I'd love to know more about the sleuthing side, because that's, you know, so obviously CJ is very big on the sleuth side anyway, but, you know, like I'm not just stuck with the legal side. I did kind of step in because there was a bit of a gap there people weren't really covering it. But I've done some uncovering and things, and the metadata and all that. So it'd be really good to to kind of just talk to you about the sleuthing side of it, and all the stuff in the messages, and have a kind of a dedicated conversation with you about that. I think
Oh, I would love that.
chat would like that as well.
Oh yeah, I would love that. That's my forte. Legal stuff, not my forte, but this messages is my forte. I can tell you dates and times. Like I know them when. So yeah, I would love that. Okay, let's keep in touch.
Fabulous. That's brilliant. And just a quick shout out, Cassie. I hope you feel better soon, because I'd love to speak to you back on here again, or on yours. Right. Thank you everyone for joining. And obviously we're missing Citizen Journalist, but she's good. And we will have another chat again soon.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you. Good night, Anita. Thank you very much for taking time to speak to us.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Good night. Bye, everyone.
Bye.